Okay, so I want to talk about the concept of price and sort of a lot of sort of misunderstandings related to this concept. So when you buy something, the price of something that you buy basically needs to be lower than what you think that thing is worth to you. Okay, so if you get more out of it than what you pay for it, then you should be willing to buy that thing. Like unless you have like extremely limited resources, you have to make a choice about what to buy. Like for example, if you have almost no money, then just being profitable is not enough. You have to actually maximize that profit. So you might make a perfect choice on what to buy because the difference between what you pay and what you get is the biggest. Okay, but if you have generally like sufficient amounts of money, then when you find something that's of more value to you than the money, then you can freely purchase them. And if you measure the money, if you measure the value in terms of kind of money, that then you're actually gaining, you're actually becoming richer by these transactions. Okay, but what most people think about the price is they focus too much on the cost to the seller. Okay, which is a grave misconception because it's 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 somewhat okay. I'll explain how it comes into play, but it's somewhat irrelevant um, to your purchase consideration, right? Like it almost seems like you don't you don't want someone. It's like if someone's cost it costs so low and they charge you a lot, like it feels like they're scamming you or like they're kind of like succeeding too much from this transaction and that bothers you. But it's kind of bothering you in a weird kind of way that's in unrelated to the transaction itself. It's kind of like you have a transaction and then you have these kind of sort of social, I guess, social prejudices or something like that. Um, but when it comes to um, sort of that kind of thing, like in some sense, that's the only way you can actually even make profit, right? Like something has to be much less costly to you than what you sell for it to actually even make a profit. And people don't really understand that the fact that it's less costly to you could have been like it might not have been just there automatically. It could have been it might have been achieved through like years of preparation and other kind of costs as well. So people not only do they actually underestimate the cost of something, so like especially services, right? People don't really um, value people's time. Like they more value like the rent of the place and this kind of the concrete goods over the services. And so they underestimate the costs, and then they're kind of offended when they're being charged by something that's disproportionate to those costs. But instead of being offended, they should actually just be grateful that they're getting more value than the money that they're paying for it, which ultimately leads to the transaction in the first place. Okay, so when might costs be like sort of a consideration, an actual consideration in the price? So so this is when like sort of market forces get involved. So when there's competition, okay. So if I'm the only one offering my brand of education to high school students, then I can set the price basically very close to what I think the value that the parent or the student gets from this education. Okay, and and it's essentially a monopoly. Okay, but it's not a necessary service, so it's not like something where like I can charge them infinitely. Okay, because there is a point where um, it's not actually worth it, right? You can't be in debt for your whole life just to pay for something just so that you can kind of I don't know, like it gets to a point where it becomes ridiculous. But the point is like, but before that point, um, the price, even though it might be sort of not competitive, it's still actually worth it and reasonable. Okay, but then when you have like two people offering the same service, okay, um, so So naturally, if you both have the same price, then I guess half the people will go to one provider and the other half will go to the other provider. It splits the field in half. And so there is somewhat of an incentive to compete on price. Okay. So if one person decides to lower the price, then the value proposition, if it's actually the same and you're just getting it for cheaper, then it seems like then everyone would go to one of them. Okay. And so but but the thing is, I guess if that happens, then in real time, like it might work out, but the competitor would probably realize and just lower their price as well. Okay, but in doing this, you haven't really achieved anything if you think about it, right? You end up kind of just going back and forth, and both of you end up working for nothing when your service is actually worth the original price in the first place. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the cost of something to you or to the seller shouldn't be a big consideration um, when you're buying something. The bigger consideration should be what you're getting out of it and whether it's worth the money that you're paying for it. Okay. Okay, there's other things I can talk about here, but I think let's stay on point for now. And if you want to extend this, let me know in the comments and subscribe for me actually extending it in another video.